John, you are being reassigned to the administrative department starting now. Does that mean I'm being demoted? You can take it that way if you like. The beautiful but cold and distant president told me this, and I was shocked. I take pride in saying that I work harder than anyone else and contribute significantly to the company. So why? Is there something wrong with my work? Yes, there is. If you want to know why you're being demoted, come to this address. She smiled sweetly as she said that. The place she specified was a secluded bar. There, while holding my hand, she said, I'll show you the real me. I, John Brown, joined Weeder Publishing Inc. this summer, a small company specializing in practical books. Known for its reliability, the company is well loved by university professors and researchers, and sales have been steadily rising. I sent the proofread manuscript data to James, my mentor. Then I headed to his desk. James, the proofreading of the manuscript is complete. What? You're already done? James widened his eyes as he checked the data I sent. It's really finished. I gave it to you the day before yesterday, right? You said you had editing experience, but were new to proofreading, so I thought it would take a week. As James, who was genuinely impressed, looked at the data, Mary, his colleague, approached. What's up, James? Oh, it's John. Look, he already finished the job I gave him the day before yesterday. No way. Proofreading usually takes me a week. That's amazing, John. I couldn't help but blush a little at the praise. Well then, John, I'm sorry to ask, but could you handle this job too? I need you to come up with 2 or 3 cover designs for the manuscript you just proofread. I should be doing it, but I understand. Thanks, I owe you. I have to check on the progress of Dr. Smith's manuscript now. Once you're done, submit it to the president. With a friendly smile, James grabbed his bag and left the room. Mary frowned slightly, but returned to her desk. Dr. Smith was a valued author whose books always boosted our sales. However, he was notoriously known in the industry as a frequent deadline breaker, due to his slow writing pace. I imagined it must be tough for James to deal with him. I returned to my desk and immediately started working on the book covers, thinking about what kind of cover to create, whether to include illustrations and whom to ask for them, the font and size of the title and author's name, and the layout. I managed to come up with 5 designs by early afternoon. After sending the data to the president, I headed to the president's office. I knocked, and a flat voice responded, "Come in." Upon entering, I was greeted by President Sarah, who wore her usual expressionless face. Her well-defined features made her seem extremely cold. "Excuse me, President. I've come up with some cover designs for your review. I just sent them to you." Still expressionless, the president began touching her computer. She then furrowed her brow slightly. This was supposed to be James's job, wasn't it? Yes, James seemed very busy, so I took it on instead. Oh, I see, but you didn't have to make 5. I thought having more options would be better. Unnecessary. After her sharp dismissal, the president let out a long sigh. I couldn't help but shrink back. Is that all you needed? If so, you can take a break or do whatever you need. The president, expressionless again, continued to stare at her computer screen, completely ignoring me. It was as if I didn't exist. Excuse me. I quietly left the president's office, a sigh escaping my lips. The president is beautiful and capable. She even gave me a chance when I was struggling with my health at my previous job. But her cold demeanor is a bit hard to handle. I know she acts that way with everyone, so it's not just me she's cold to. A few days later, the president suddenly appeared in the editorial department, causing everyone to tense up. She was radiating an even colder aura than usual. She stopped at James's desk. "James, do you have the cover design, promotion, and advertising plans for Dr. Smith's book ready?" "Hi, President. Not yet. But the release date is a month later, so we still have time." That's no longer the case. Dr. Smith requested that the release date be moved up to a week from now. A week from now? That's impossible. Everyone showed sympathy for James's distress. I understand it's unreasonable, but if we don't do it, Dr. Smith won't publish with us anymore. But he's our top author. If his books stop coming out, we'll lose a lot of our customers. James clutched his head in despair. At that moment, I noticed the president's eyebrows lower slightly, and her eyes took on an apologetic look. Just get it done as soon as possible. I'm counting on you. After the president left, James let out a big sigh. This is impossible. It's one thing to handle the cover design, but I also have to do the promotion and advertising plans. The president is a tyrant. His words made me recall the president's expression earlier, and I felt a small pang in my chest. James, I'll help you. But John, you also have to come up with a promotion plan for another book, don't you? I'll finish that too. It's not as urgent. James sighed deeply. All right, I'll do your job, and you handle mine. Got it. I handed James the data for the almost completed promotion plan and started working on the cover design and promotion plan for Dr. Smith's book from scratch. Since it involved other departments, I needed to finish quickly. Feeling the pressure, I worked overtime that day. The next day, it's done. In the empty office, I shouted in joy. When James came in, I asked him to check it, and he was amazed but gave his approval. James got the president's approval too, and the cover design was sent to the printing department, and the promotion plan to the PR department. Thus, Dr. Smith's book was successfully released a week later. I can't believe you finished that job in one day. Honestly, if John hadn't finished it in a day, we in the printing department would have been in a lot more trouble. The PR department feels the same way. Hearing praise and gratitude from various departments, a wave of happiness washed over me. Knowing I was able to help everyone is the greatest joy for me. John, come to the president's office. Just as everyone was praising me, the president suddenly called me. James gave me a strong pat on the back. Maybe it's a promotion. Even the president's ironclad expression should crack after John's performance. Amused by everyone's speculations, I headed to the president's office. The president was still expressionless. No, she seemed slightly more animated. John, you're being reassigned to the administrative department starting now. I was so shocked I couldn't close my mouth. Hired for the editorial department. Why was I being moved to the administrative department, which had a completely different work style? This feels like a polite way of being demoted. Why? Is there something wrong with my work in the editorial department? Yes, there is. Her calm reply made me a bit angry. What exactly is wrong? Please tell me. The president sighed and handed me a business card. It had the name and address of a bar on it. If you really want to know, come here tonight. With that, she turned her back, signaling the end of the conversation. Sensing her lingering anger, I greeted softly and left the room. Hey John, how did it go? Are you the new head of the editorial department? Back in the editorial department, James greeted me with a smile. I gave him a wry smile in return. I'm being transferred to the administrative department. What? The administrative department? They already have enough people and not much to do. Hearing our conversation, other employees started whispering. Isn't that a demotion? No way. Is John disliked by the president? Those words made my shoulders slump. I've always wanted to be helpful to everyone. Back then, I wanted to be helpful to the president, who seemed apologetic to James. I never expected this kind of treatment. Hey John, even if you go to the administrative department, we'll still be friends, right? Of course. Seeing James's worried face, I forced a smile and answered. That night, I used the business card the president gave me and my smartphone's map app to find the bar she mentioned. It was in a less crowded area, with an entrance that was hard to find. The place had an air of being a well-kept secret, Nervously entering, I was greeted by an older bartender with a gentle smile, saying, "Welcome." Looking around, I saw the president at the end of the counter, sipping a red cocktail. When I sat next to her, she glared at me before ordering beers for both of us from the bartender. "Go ahead and drink. I ordered something with low alcohol content that even you can handle, John." President: "How did you know I don't like beer?" "At your welcome party, you barely drank. Despite being the guest of honor, you spent all your time taking care of others." The welcome party was held right after I joined the company. She noticed and remembered my behavior from that time. As I was surprised, 2 light golden cocktails were placed on the table. She took one and drank it in one gulp. This situation too. That was James's job, and he should have done it. I knew it was too much for one person, and I expected the editorial team to divide the work. But you went ahead and did it all by yourself. Looking closely, I noticed the president's eyes were slightly red. Could she be drunk? Ignoring my puzzled look, she continued talking. "Just because you're capable doesn't mean you should take on everyone's work. You even worked overtime for this, right? You said you left your previous job because overworking ruined your health." "Yes, I'm happy to be relied on. But if you get sick, it's a problem for us. Our employees don't work overtime unless it's absolutely necessary. You should follow their example. We can't entrust editorial work to someone who can't manage their own health." "I'm sorry," I whispered and took a sip of the cocktail. It was smooth and easy to drink. "Do you realize you look pale? The administrative department has enough staff, so there's less pressure. Take your time and rely on your co-workers instead of doing everything alone. So, the transfer to the administrative department is to give me some rest." The president said nothing, tracing the rim of her glass with her finger. There was a case earlier when I didn't notice an employee pushing themselves too hard. That employee eventually fell ill and left. Since then, I've been extra cautious about my employees' health. But I failed again. I let you overwork. The president leaned on the table, resting her head in her hand, and let out a long sigh. Hearing this, I was certain. She wasn't a cold person or a tyrant. She was a kind woman who cared about her employees. Realizing this, I felt a pang in my chest. I had caused her worry by overworking myself. "I'm sorry. I'll manage myself better from now on, if it helps you, President." Clenching my fists on my lap, I said this, and the president frowned slightly before breaking into a laugh. "Helping me? Well, if it stops you from overworking, then fine." She finished her cocktail and ordered another. Seeing her look more relaxed, I couldn't help but smile. She glared at me. "What are you smiling about?" "I just thought, President, that your expressions change a lot more than I expected." "Oh, that. I'm the president, right? I can't be seen favoring anyone, so I try to treat everyone equally at the office. I can't be taken lightly either, so I keep a stern face. But then people call me cold, a tyrant, or the iron-faced president." She stared at the next drink that had arrived. Her profile was so beautiful it made my heart ache. "I don't think that at all. You're expressive, kind, and a very charming woman." When I boldly said that, her cheeks turned a deeper shade of red. "You're the first person to say that to me. It makes me want to favor you, John. At work, please stay the way you are. But sometimes, let's have a drink here together. If you have anything troubling you or want to talk about, I'll listen. I want to know more about you." "Thank you." The president's voice wavered slightly, and her eyes glistened with tears. Pretending not to notice, I took a quiet sip of my cocktail. Days in the administrative department were much calmer than in the editorial department. Everyone was kind and patiently taught me the ropes of administrative work. Also, the president and I started meeting for drinks at the bar once a week. "Your complexion has improved a lot." About a month after my transfer, the president, sipping her usual drink, suddenly said, "Yes, after you mentioned it, I stood in front of the mirror and realized my complexion really wasn't good. It took you long enough to notice. You stand in front of the mirror every day, don't you? I'm sorry. As I scratched my cheek, the president sighed, a mix of exasperation and fondness in her expression. You're eating properly, right? Never skip breakfast. It can cause your blood pressure to spike. And are you getting enough sleep? You need at least 7 hours. Otherwise, it affects your performance the next day. Whenever we met at the bar, the president always brought this up. When I couldn't help but smile, she pouted. What are you laughing at? Nothing. You just sound like a mother. Shouldn't you say girlfriend instead? And didn't I ask you to call me Sarah here, not president? I call you John at the office. The president, apparently sulking, started fidgeting with her glass. Sorry, Sarah. I wasn't used to calling her by her name, and I felt my face flush with embarrassment. But she seemed satisfied and stopped pouting. Hey, mother. Hey, John. What was your mother like? At Sarah's question, I lowered my gaze a bit. But there was no need to hide it, so I decided to share. I grew up in a single-parent household. My father was gone by the time I was aware of things. I was told he died of an illness. As a child, I often fell sick. Because of that, my mother frequently had to take time off work. As a result, our income was low. I couldn't eat nutritious food, and my health never improved. It was a vicious cycle. After I lay down in bed, I often heard my mother sigh quietly. Every time I heard that, a sense of guilt weighed heavily on my chest. I felt I was making life harder for her because of my constant illnesses. So at the very least, I wanted to make her happy with good grades, and I worked hard at my studies. As a result, despite frequently missing school, I had excellent grades. Honestly, the school lessons were too easy for me. When I took an IQ test, it was 170, which the teacher said was remarkable. However, because I barely attended school, I couldn't make friends with my classmates. I didn't know how to approach them, and they treated me like an outsider. Everyone said studying was hard, but I couldn't understand why. I can master this after reading it once, I thought. I might have come off as arrogant to others. This made me reluctant to go to school, and sometimes I pretended to be sick even when I felt fine. One day, my mother found out. Her eyes narrowed with anger, and she slapped my cheek. Why are you lying? Why can't you go to school like other kids? After she shouted, her eyes widened as if coming to her senses. She cried and hugged me, saying, I'm sorry. But by that point, she had reached her limit. During the summer break when I was 12, I went to stay at my aunt's house in a distant countryside, riding in my mother's car. The air was clean there, and I felt healthier. I could go fishing in the river and run around the fields and mountains with my cousins and their friends. As soon as we arrived, I went out with my cousin to catch cicadas with a net and a bug cage. When we returned at dusk, my mother's car was gone. Surprised, I questioned my aunt. Your mother had to return to work. She'll come back before the end of the summer break, she said. Though my aunt's eyes seemed to hide sadness, I chose to believe her words. I spent about a month playing hard with my cousins and their friends. However, even as the cicadas started to sing, my mother never showed up. Before I knew it, summer break was over. I ended up transferring to the same school as my cousins. It was then that I finally realized. My mother had no intention of coming back for me. She had finally given up on a useless child like me who was only good at studying. My aunt must have known this. The words she said, I'll come back before the end of the summer break, were a lie. But I couldn't bring myself to blame my aunt. It was all my fault. I wasn't a good child for my mother. Instead, I felt sorry that I would now be a burden to my aunt. Fortunately, my health had improved significantly, so I not only focused on my studies, but also actively helped around the house. When my cousins, their friends, or new classmates asked for help with their studies, I never refused. I made it a point to help the elderly neighbors whenever they were in need. Perhaps because of that, I eventually became unable to refuse when people relied on me. This led to my health deteriorating at my previous job, and now I'm here. When I finished speaking and looked at Sarah, she was looking at me with a deeply pained expression. Our eyes met, and she placed her hand on mine, which was resting on the table. The warmth of her touch made my heart race. John, none of this is your fault. Not your health issues, not your difficulties with classmates, none of it. You just had bad luck. Bad luck? Yes, so there's no need for you to sacrifice yourself. Something fell from my eyes. When I touched it, I realized it was a tear. Her hand, resting on mine, squeezed tightly. The warmth gradually melted the ice around my heart. It felt like my heart had been frozen all this time. No, it really had been. I just had noticed. Sarah gently wiped away my falling tears with her fingers. When I looked up, our eyes met. She smiled warmly and then pressed her lips against mine. It's late, let's go home. Leaving me stunned, she stood up as if nothing had happened. I touched my lips, wondering if it was a dream, but they felt unusually warm. The tears had, of course, stopped. I had also gotten used to the work in the administrative department. Now, I can finish all my tasks without anyone's help. John, please order 100 copies of this. The data Sarah handed me was for a promotional poster for a book being published early next month. The author is Miss Patricia Brown, who wrote about single-parent households. Since her name reads the same as my mother's, I secretly support her. By the way, my mother's name is read as Patricia, using the character Jen. A few days later, the ordered posters arrived, and I headed to the president's office to deliver them to Sarah. John, just in time. James called out to me. With his usual friendly smile, he hurried over. Dr. Smith's next book is about the declining birth rate, and there's some material he insists he needs. Can you help me find it? I was about to reflexively say, got it, but stopped myself. I'm in the administrative department now, so I have to focus on my tasks here. I don't have the bandwidth to help with editorial work. Sorry, James, I'm swamped with administrative work. Come on, you said we'd still be friends even if you moved departments. I know, but I have some tasks the president asked me to do as well. I indicated the box of posters, and James looked down at it suspiciously. Oh, I see. You've got a lighter workload, right? Must be nice to be the president's favorite. James's exaggerated voice surprised me. His loud remarks drew not only the editorial department, but also people from the administrative and PR departments. James, what do you mean John is the president's favorite? Mary from the editorial department asked, and James looked around at the gathered crowd, as if waiting for this moment. John and the president sometimes drink together at a bar at night. They're close like that. James's words caused a stir among the crowd. No, that's not true. The president and I aren't like that. Just as I tried to deny it, Sarah appeared, apparently drawn by the commotion. What's going on here? President, James is saying that you and John are meeting at a bar night after night. Is that true? Mary's question left Sarah momentarily speechless, caught off guard. The silence seemed to confirm the rumor, and the murmur of the crowd grew louder. James wore a smug expression, saying, "See." Sarah's face turned slightly red. I wanted to help her. With that in mind, I shouted louder than the murmurs. That's not true. It's a misunderstanding. The president knows I overworked myself at my previous job and fell ill. She just checks on my health occasionally to make sure it doesn't happen again. She's not the type to show favoritism or treat anyone specially. As the president, she's always careful to treat everyone equally. She's attentive enough to notice when any of her employees aren't well. She's a kind and considerate leader. My heavy breathing was the only sound in the suddenly quiet hallway. James let out a dry laugh. Getting so defensive makes it even more suspicious, right, Mary? James placed his hand on Mary's shoulder, seeking agreement. But she quickly shrugged it off. I know the president cares about all her employees. I respect her for that. And James, weren't you the reason John was overworked? What, me? Yes, as his mentor. You often dumped your work on him while you claimed to be checking on manuscript progress, but were actually goofing off. Why do you know about that? James, now sweating, took a step back. I've noticed you overloading John with work. I was waiting to gather enough evidence before reporting to the president, but John's transfer happened before I could. So it never got reported. Mary fiddled with her smartphone and then showed it to Sarah. From a distance, it looked like a photo. Sarah looked at the photos with a stern expression and then glared at James. He froze, like a deer in headlights. Mary, please compile this data and send it to me. I'll inform you of James's consequences later. Everyone, get back to work. With Sarah's icy command, the employees hurried back to their stations. Only Sarah and I remained in the hallway. I was trying to deliver these posters to you. Then follow me. I hurriedly readjusted my grip on the box and followed her brisk pace. In the president's office, I showed Sarah the posters. These posters are fine. Send them to our partners. Yes. As I turned to leave, Sarah stopped me. Wait a moment. Thank you for standing up for me earlier. I was at a loss for words, so you really helped. And I'm happy to know that you think of me that way. You've called me charming before, and it makes me happy every time. Sarah's gentle smile was so beautiful that I couldn't help but stare. Seeing her curved lips reminded me of our recent kiss, and my heart started pounding. John. Yes. I stammered, my face burning hot. Sarah blushed too and looked up at me. I know saying this here makes me a bad president, but I have to tell you, I like you. You're the only one who understands my true self. Her words made a sweet and sour feeling well up in my chest. I like you too, Sarah. You melted my frozen heart, something even I hadn't realized. Sarah narrowed her eyes with a smile at my response. She closed the distance between us and gently cupped my cheek. Her warmth and the pleasant scent that surrounded her made my head spin. When I closed my eyes tightly, her soft lips met mine. James was suspended for 2 weeks due to neglect of duties. I asked Sarah and got transferred back to the editorial department. The editorial department is already busy. I knew it would get even busier without James, which is why I wanted to return. Sarah was worried and opposed it, but she finally agreed after I promised not to overdo it. I took over handling Dr. Smith from James. Working with Dr. Smith was tough. He would say, I can't write without the chocolate from the store by the station. And when I went to buy it, he'd sneak out to watch a movie. Or he'd say he needed to go to the bookstore for research, and we'd end up spending 3 hours there. I could understand why James might have wanted to slack off a bit. With the help of Sarah and the editorial team, I gathered the necessary materials for Dr. Smith and scheduled his interviews. James returned after his suspension. I'm sorry, John. He apologized first thing to me. I heard you're handling Dr. Smith now. Let me help. I know his habits well since I used to be in charge, so I should be able to assist. Of course, thank you. I extended my right hand to the apologetic James. He looked up in surprise, his eyes moist, and firmly shook my hand. Once James started helping, the work became much easier. With the extra support, I could give even more attention to Dr. Smith's needs. I helped Dr. Smith by discussing his writing struggles and organizing his thoughts. Gradually, his attitude began to change. He started spending more time seriously working on his writing and even finished his manuscript a week before the deadline. This from someone known for consistently missing deadlines. Because you take my work seriously, It makes me feel like I have to do the same," he said, handing over the early manuscript with a shy smile. The news quickly spread throughout the office. Getting the manuscript a week early from Dr. Smith is incredible. Having extra days is a huge help for the printing department. The PR department feels the same way. All the praise made me feel a bit embarrassed. It's thanks to everyone's help, especially James. Thank you. When I looked at James, he gave a wry smile and scratched his cheek. What are you talking about? It's all because of you. Your personality and dedication to your work inspired everyone. As James said this, applause erupted from those around us, agreeing with him. In the midst of the applause, I noticed Sarah was there too. When our eyes met, she gave me a gentle smile. Apologies to everyone else, but seeing Sarah's smile was the best reward I could have gotten. A few days later, I accompanied Sarah to a book launch lecture by Patricia Brown. Other publishers were also present at the event. Since it was my first time at such an event, I looked around curiously and noticed someone approaching. "You're John, right? I've heard the rumors. You're the only editor who managed to get Dr. Smith, the notorious deadline breaker, to submit early. You're famous in the publishing world." "What, me?" I glanced at Sarah, who seemed to already know about this and had a proud expression on her face. As I continued greeting people who praised my work, Sarah suddenly grabbed my hand. "Excuse us, we have a prior engagement, John. Come with me." She led me to Patricia Brown's waiting room. After knocking, Sarah entered the room. "John, this is Miss Patricia Brown." Seeing the woman I was introduced to, I gasped. She had more white hair and wrinkles than I remembered, but there was no mistaking her. She was my mother. The moment she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Trying to hold them back, she clenched her fists tightly. "John, is it really you?" "Yes, Mom. It's been a long time." "Yes, it has, John. I'm so sorry." Slowly approaching, she gently grasped my arm. "I'm so sorry, John." I left without saying anything. But at that time, I felt I had no choice. I was trying to manage work, housework, and raising you all by myself, and I was mentally exhausted. When I finally raised my hand against you, I thought keeping you with me would only make you unhappy. So, I asked my sister to take you in. Her hands trembled as she cried uncontrollably. I squeezed her hand in return. "Mom, you didn't leave me because you thought I was a bad kid or because you gave up on me. Of course not. You are my one and only precious son." "Oh, but I made you feel that way. I'm truly sorry. I was the one who failed as a mother. I'm so sorry." "No, Mom, just like you didn't think I was a bad kid. I never thought of you as a bad mother." My mother and I embraced each other, both of us crying. I gently patted her back as she sobbed, treating her like something fragile. Sarah, who had quietly watched us from the side, also had tears streaming down her face. By the time the lecture ended, it was late at night. I was walking with Sarah to her house along the dark street. "Sarah, when did you realize that Patricia Brown was my mother?" "When I went to ask her to write the book, she talked about her son, and it matched what you had told me about your mother. I asked her, just in case, plus the kanji for her real last name was the same." I nodded in understanding. "Thank you, Sarah, for bringing my mother and me together." "It's nothing. It was something I wanted to do." Sarah glanced up at the night sky. I followed her gaze and saw countless stars twinkling. I thought it was beautiful. I realized that being able to appreciate the night sky meant I had found some peace. Before, I was so focused on being useful to others that I never took the time to look up. In the end, the person who can take care of you the best is yourself. I learned this through meeting Sarah. And with this realization, I still want to be of help to others. This time, it's not out of a sense of duty, but because I genuinely want to be that kind of person. I want to cherish this desire while also taking care of my health. I held Sarah's hand next to me. She squeezed back. Her eyes, gazing at me, were more beautiful than the stars in the night sky. Apologies to the stars, but that's how I saw it. And then, as if it were the most natural thing, we kissed.